All right, guys, we are so excited to be here today, bringing you this information, especially this time of the year. And I was staring at the wrong camera. I need to look right here, guys. Super excited to be here with Dustin Dooley of Dooley Insurance today. He's going to talk to us all about the ins and outs. Well, not all. That would be like a 5-day conference. We're not. He's going to give us the four most important things to look at when you're getting your homeowner's policy and talking about wind and hail. Dustin, I'm so excited that you're here today. Thank you for bringing this information to the audience.
Josh, I appreciate you inviting me on. I'm excited to be here.
And guys, before we get started, remember today's Memorial Day. You know, all the praise, all the thoughts and prayers go out to those who gave their lives for our country and given us the freedoms that we currently have in this country. Like the great Ronald Reagan said, we're one generation away from losing all of our freedoms. So when it comes time, always make your voice heard if you love America and stand up for American values. With that said, and now that the algorithm has kicked us off every single platform possible, Dustin, let's go over the first question. I always tell people, especially when we're getting the home inspections, especially when we're looking at houses, talk to Dustin about the difference for replacement cost on your roof and actual cash value on your roof. And we always look at the disclosures to see how old that roof is. And can you tell us the importance, or could you define both of those, replacement cost and actual cash value, and then tell us the importance of both one and why a roof may fall into one category over another?
Absolutely. So first of all, I will start out by saying that it's important that you have an insurance agent that you trust, an agent that will educate you on your coverages, that won't try to just rush you through the process. Ask questions. So this part right here is where a lot of people, particularly in Oklahoma and places that get a lot of wind and hail damage, find themselves in a tough situation, getting surprises all the time. And we absolutely, in our agency, we really like to avoid surprises at all costs. So that's why we will spend a lot of time just educating our clients on what they're getting. So you've got replacement cost value. Like Josh had mentioned, that is going to be your best coverage for your roof. You live in Oklahoma, you need replacement cost coverage. So what replacement cost coverage is that if wind or hail damage happens to your roof, the insurance company will pay for the total replacement of your roof. That's shingles, that's flashing, that's everything except for the decking. We'll get to that in a minute. But the problem with that replacement cost coverage that you need to be aware of is that there's a limit on that. On most policies, some are 15 years, some are 12 years, some are 10 year, 8 year. So that's important to know. And it's important to know how old your roof is, so that you know how long you've got on that replacement cost coverage. So, you know, if you've got a 15-year replacement cost coverage on your roof, and you get a hailstorm and your roof is, let's call it 14 years. Okay. You're going to get full replacement cost coverage for that roof minus your deductible. Okay. And we'll talk about deductibles here in a little while as well. Now, on the other side of that, you've got actual cash value, or some companies will call it scheduled payments. What this is it's a percentage based on how old your roof is. Okay. So let's go back to that 15-year replacement. Say you've got 15-year replacement, then your roof turns 16 years old. Automatically, your roof coverage will switch over to that actual cash value. Okay. And so what that means is that there's a schedule you can look at, and you can ask your agents for it. It'll show you the percentage of coverage that you are at based on the age of your roof. So say your roof is 16 years old and the average is about 3% per year. So you're looking at probably about somewhere around 50%. I'm not going to do the math right now. But you're starting to get down there. Okay, so that's important also to balance with your deductibles as well as you think about this, because that's going to be minus your deductible as well. Another thing to throw in there is that in Oklahoma, because we do have so many hailstorms, windstorms, there are some places that it's actually very difficult to get replacement cost value on your roof. Something you want to consider before you buy. That's why it's always a good idea to talk to your agent or to an agent before you purchase a home. Know exactly what you're walking into. So I run into this seldomly. It's more. It's not very often that I run into a house that doesn't offer the replacement cost value, but it does happen every once in a while, and I think that's based on zip code. It may even be broken down into a more precise location, but I do know zip code is a big part of that. So, yeah, I mean, replacement cost is always going to be your best option.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And guys, I put down in the comments below so that if anything comes up after this call, you want to reach out to Dustin and go in depth more on what he's talking about on the roof. If you get ready to buy a house, especially, and you need to know the age of the roof when you call him. But I put his website down in the comments below so that you guys could check that. Give him a call when we get off the call. Great info on replacement value and actual cash value. And like I said at the beginning, guys, this would be a 5-day conference if we went into every minute detail. Definitely reach out to Dustin when we get off the call below. And going into those deductibles, Dustin, you kind of talked about it real briefly on the last question. Some customers want the percentage deductible. Some customers want the flat fee deductible. I know cash reserves will probably really determine which direction people go on that. But also, you mentioned weighing the actual cash value coverage that a roof could get compared to the deductible. So can you tell us a little bit more about deductibles? And it sounds like there's no one size fits all.
Yeah, there isn't. I mean, year to year, a flat fee and a percentage is going to be the same. I mean, your percentage is actually a flat fee. However, the percentage deductible is actually, it's going to adjust as the replacement cost value of your home adjusts. So every year when your homeowner's policy renews, the insurance company looks at your home and says, well, last year it would have cost X amount to replace your home. This year, that went up by $20,000. So when you have that percentage coverage, it's a percentage of what it costs to completely replace your home, which is typically your coverage A, your dwelling coverage. So say if your home is a $100,000 home, right, and you've got a 2% wind and hail deductible, you're going to be paying $2,000 deductible. Okay. And just kind of throwing this out there, we are seeing trends in the industry where they're going to start opening up higher percentages on deductibles. And that's just the way things are going, unfortunately. So now on a flat fee, so I've got some policies that you can pick either $2,500 or $5,000 deductible. That's not going to change year to year, unless that insurance company decides to change that policy. And at that point, we're going to be doing some sort of rewrite, and we're going to figure out, what the best option is for you at that time. So that's great. Your deductible doesn't increase year to year as your replacement value of your home, that dwelling coverage A, increases. So you always know what you've got there. Now, I will say, it's all a numbers game. That's what insurance is. It's all a numbers game. You got to figure out what's best for your budget. That's really what it is. And also, you want to know who you're doing business with. You want to know how that specific insurance company, how they settle claims. You look up reviews. See if this company has lawsuits out against them because they're not paying claims. Absolutely educate yourself on that before you sign a policy. So does that answer everything that you think, Josh, or do you have any questions on that?
Yeah, from a consumer standpoint, personally, and you tell me if I'm wrong, Dustin, but if I've got a flat fee of, let's say, $5,000,
Mm-hmm.
and the average going rate for a home in the Oklahoma City metro area right now is at like $225,000.
Right.
So if I've got a flat fee of $5,000, that's basically a 2% coverage. The thing about the percentage of what you had mentioned is if I've got, and this is from a consumer standpoint, speaking from policies and cost, the higher my deductible is, the lower my monthly payments. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
But
now sometimes, we'll play around with them when we're quoting them. Sometimes you find a sweet spot in there. It could be, so I write with multiple companies. So it could be, with one company, it's, we'll check 1.5%, 2%, 3%, 5%. But it really feels like you're getting the best bang for your buck at 2%. So that's kind of the sweet spot. With other companies that do more of a cash, a stated amount deductible, we'll play around with that 1,000, 2,000, 2,500, whatever, just to see, okay, where is the sweet spot here? And we'll, a good agent will always present those options and let you know, hey, here's where I think you're the best at, but ultimately it's your decision.
And as a consumer, when I'm taking all of that into account, one second, had a piece of fuzz. Sorry about that. I love these live videos. You guys get to see it. As a consumer, if I go with the higher deductible for the lower monthly payment, I've got to make sure that I feel comfortable having that reserve, especially here in Oklahoma. Because if I've got a 2% deductible on a $225,000 home, that's in Oklahoma City. If I'm talking to Edmond, their median sales price is $385,000,
right,
and I got a 2% deductible on that. I've got to make sure that if God decides to wipe out my house with a hailstorm, or if God decides to suck my whole house away with a tornado, I've got to be prepared with that money in my bank, because I had those lower monthly payments, to cover that deductible. Is that something too that a consumer needs to be very aware of when choosing a policy?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I mean, there's so many variables that come into play, and it's individual for every homeowner. Also, I mean, when you get into your rating options, one person with the exact same house may get a cheaper rate at one company than what you with the exact same house would get a rate at that company, because there are so many variables that come into play. So when you're looking at this, you need to look at what's your reserve, what can you afford? Because in Oklahoma, we can have a hailstorm in the middle of winter anytime, so you got to be prepared at all times. Yeah. And so, yeah, I always hate to see when people are just kind of nonchalant about, picking their deductibles and their coverages on their policies, because that really concerns me for them. It's like, are you really thinking everything through here? Are you really prepared, if something happens, and a lot of people, they'll just look at that price tag up top and they'll be like, oh, I just want the cheapest coverage. But the cheapest coverage, well, I mean, insurance is like everything else. You get what you pay for, you really do. And the cheapest coverage, while that fulfills the need for insurance, a lot of times people wind up regretting having that. So
there may not be any coverage.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, like I said earlier, there are companies out there that they'll fight you tooth and nail to pay a claim, and so that's why it's important to do your research as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. When you're talking about these coverages, I like to point out to people there, and I'm not an insurance guy. This is why Dustin's on, everybody. I always tell you, you got to call Dustin to verify what I'm saying. Or if you've already got a policy with someone else, check with them, get a second opinion with Dustin. But I always tell people, there's a difference between your homeowner's insurance and wind and hail. Am I telling them the right information? Is there such thing? Like, is there dwelling insurance and a dwelling deductible? And is there wind and hail insurance and wind and hail deductible? Am I telling them the right stuff, or have I been making this up for the last 17 years?
No, you're not saying the wrong thing. But I want to go through this list here. that is covered perils. Okay.
Okay.
So your homeowner's insurance, you want to look at what's covered on wind and hail. That is the same. Okay. It's not a separate policy. So your typical homeowner's policy will cover windstorm and hail. Okay. It'll cover explosions, vandalism, and malicious mischief. Okay. Damage by an aircraft, a car, any kind of vehicle. It'll cover theft, falling objects, weight of ice, snow, or sleet, and water damage. Yes. Okay. So those are your typical perils that are covered by a policy. When you're shopping for insurance, you want to look at and you want to ask questions. What perils are covered?
Okay.
What losses are going to be covered on this policy? Okay. Some policies you get out there, and it's typically the cheaper ones, they actually won't include things like vandalism and malicious mischief or water damage or theft. Like you want to make sure. Don't just assume that that's in there. Double check and make sure, because you can endorse those on those cheaper policies. You can add those coverages on there, and obviously the price goes up, the more coverage you get. But then I'll also add this too, that there are a lot of things that can cause damage to your home. So you've got disease, mold, pest infestations, general wear and tear, floods, earthquakes, okay, sinkholes, earth movement, sewer backup, and law and ordinances, which we talked about earlier on replacing the decking on your roof. These are things that aren't covered on a basic policy. Okay. Those you can endorse and add on coverage for those. It is very, very seldom that I write a policy that doesn't have law and ordinances coverage on it, because I know that in Oklahoma, it's very important to have that. And if your home is older than, well, I won't put an exact number on it, but a few years old, there's a good chance that the law and ordinances have changed since your home was built. And so, it's important to have these things. And like I said, a good agent, they're gonna point you. They're gonna care about you and your family, and they're gonna tell you, here's what I really think you need, and here's why. Okay. Now, earthquake coverage. Okay, so back in the early 2000s, we started having a lot of earthquakes in Oklahoma, and became a big deal to put earthquake coverage on your home. I had earthquake coverage on my home for like a decade or so, and never needed it. But it was pretty cheap back then. Well, now it's not. Okay, so there are times when adding earthquake coverage to a homeowner's policy can nearly double the premium, the annual premium on that. I mean, it's crazy just how over the years it's gone from just a very cheap endorsement to like, this radically changed my budget here. So if you want that earthquake coverage, talk to your agent about it, and carefully measure your risk versus the price. Because I also tell people, if you're going to be paying $10,000 a year for earthquake coverage, I'm just throwing a number out there. Okay, how often do you use earthquake coverage? Okay, and if I mean, I don't really know anybody. I'm not thinking of anybody that's ever had an earthquake claim in Oklahoma, even though we have earthquakes. So, I mean, let's say you go 10 years and you save $10,000, right? So that's $100,000 that you've got in your bank that could have been money working for you somewhere else, and you can cover that damage yourself. So that's always something to think about, but absolutely, a good agent isn't going to have you paying for something that you most likely don't need. We want you to spend your money the wisest we can. So,
and for those of you just joining today's live video podcast, be sure to check out the comments for any additional questions that you have for Dustin. I've got his website link in the comments section. So just click on that, schedule time to reach out to him, go in depth on what type of coverage works and doesn't work for you and your situation. Last question, Dustin, is if I'm a tenant, if I'm going to OU, if I'm going to OSU, if I'm going to Tulsa college that's in Tulsa, if I'm going anywhere and I'm renting, or if I'm just renting, because home ownership is so expensive nowadays. It's so expensive. Houses have doubled in price from 2019 to today, and interest rates have quadrupled since then. It's so expensive to own a home. If I'm just a renter, what we're talking about today, do I need a tornado policy? Do I need a wind and hail policy? Or does my renter's policy typically, we're talking in generalities, does it typically cover those types of scenarios?
Yeah. So having conversations with people that are renting, they vary all over the place. Some people, they automatically know the need to have renter's insurance. Some people, they'll be like, my landlord has insurance, I don't need it. But what they don't understand is yes, your landlord has a landlord protect policy. That landlord protect policy, that covers the actual dwelling. So the apartment, the home, whatever it is, that covers damage to that. That's not your asset, so you don't need to cover that. Okay. That covers their liability. That covers their contents in that home. So whether that be an oven, a refrigerator, whatever they are letting you use in that house, that covers that. Landlord protect policies do not cover your contents. Okay, so let's talk about everything that you moved into that home when you moved in there. This is your clothes. This is your silverware, your appliances. This is your family heirlooms, your collectibles. Everything that you would pack up and take with you is not covered on your landlord's insurance policy. So that's why it's important for you to have, if you care about your stuff, to have renter's insurance. But also, that's part A. Part B is liability coverage. Okay. If somebody were to be visiting you and to get injured in your apartment or your home, and the court deems that it was due to your neglect, maybe you didn't pick up something and they tripped over it, right? And they take you to court, and the court says, yeah, this was your neglect that caused this injury. They're going to come after you. Okay. And if you don't have that liability coverage in place, you're going to wind up making payments for the rest of your life, unfortunately. So we want to be covered at all ends. You don't have to be a millionaire to be sued like a millionaire, Josh. You really don't. And I'll get back into homeowners. I heard a scenario the other day. A kid was warming up in the batter's box and accidentally hit another kid in the back of the head, caused a lifelong injury to that kid. And had that family not had an umbrella policy, which is a separate policy, okay, but umbrella, it extends to your auto, to your home, to wherever you are. Had they not had that umbrella policy in place for a couple of million, they would have been broke. Them and their children would have lost everything for the rest of their life. So liability insurance, whether you're talking auto, home, renters, umbrella, always important, especially if you have a lot to lose. But like I said, you don't have to be a millionaire to be sued like a millionaire. So back to renters or tenants insurance. Yes, that's important if you care about your things and you care about not being sued.
And then is tornado already in most renters policies, Dustin, or is that is that an endorsement that you?
Nope.
Okay.
No, it would have those same covered perils that I discussed earlier. So I'll list those off again. You've got windstorm and hail. So windstorm and tornado, that's the same thing. Explosion, vandalism, malicious mischief, damage from aircraft, car, or vehicle, theft, falling objects, weight of snow or ice. Okay. And I'll explain this, and water damage. Okay. So those two, weight of snow and ice or water damage. While the damage to your contents, your personal property, may have been caused by something that happened to the house, your contents are not covered by your landlord's policy. Okay. So if the roof caves in your rental house, the landlord has his coverage to get his house taken care of, but your contents will only be covered if you have the right amount of coverage and a renter's policy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And guys, that and Dustin, correct me if I'm wrong, but every insurance company and every insurance agent will have a little bit different nuances to it. So it's always really good to reach out to you and verify, because even though we say that your policies have all this coverage, if they're not insured with you, then they definitely need to check their own renter's policy or tenant's policy to verify what's in that policy. Am I right? Like, it's not a blanket, everybody protects you this much. It's your the Dooley Insurance agency, you protect them this much, but if they're not with you, they need to check their policies. Am I right?
Yeah, like I said, check your policies. Any questions that come up. I mean, we live in the digital age where you can send a text message. All of my clients, they have my cell phone number. They can send me a text anytime they want. Doesn't matter. You can send a text, an email, make a phone call, ask them, say, hey, I was looking over my policy and I saw this. What does this mean? Or can you explain this to me a little more? A good agent is always going to educate their clients. Also, a good agent is going to ask questions. So Josh, I've got you sitting here at my desk and I'm going to start asking you questions about your hobbies. What do you do? What's your family? Because I want to get to know you, as well as I want to get to know your risks, right? So I want to make sure that you're covered, because if something happens to you and I didn't offer the coverage for that, I mean, I'm going to lose sleep over that, and that's like, with life insurance. Life insurance is a hard thing for a lot of insurance agents to bring up, but man, if I've got someone here and I don't offer them life insurance and something happens and their family gets put in a bad position, I can't imagine how I would handle that. I don't want to be in that situation. So yeah, a good agent is always going to educate you and ask you about your risks. Try to get to know, where do you need covered.
All right. Well, that is really good info. I'm double checking our comments real quick. Potential client wants to move to Oklahoma. Okay. We'll reach out to you, Cool Gamers. We will reach out to you. We'll get you in contact with Dustin. Dustin's info is in the comments section, so click on that and definitely schedule a call with Dustin. Yes. Yeah. I tell people, Dustin, you might not tell people this, but I tell people this, and you might not like it, but I always say that Oklahoma and Kansas are competing for the two most expensive states when it comes to homeowners insurance, because I want to prep them for the cold, hard reality about it, and there's no way around it, and unless you're self-insured. But like Dustin said, you could get sued like a millionaire, regardless if you're a millionaire or not. And even when it comes to billionaires, I mean, we know one of our prominent billionaires who is America First, and look at what's happening to him. Anyone can be sued over anything. But am I wrong on Oklahoma and Kansas always fighting to be the most expensive, or is that a true factual? I'm trying to set it straight to people. I joke about it, but it just is what it is. Like the cost of milk nowadays, it's almost $10 a gallon. It's just mind blowing. Am I wrong? Am I right on Kansas and Oklahoma fighting?
I would say probably the most expensive state insurance-wise to live in is going to be California. California is just, there's a lot of bad stuff out there. Florida's pretty high. But yeah, Oklahoma and Kansas, I'm sure between the two of us, we're probably in that top five. The numbers change often, and I haven't looked at it in a while, but I would say Oklahoma's probably number 3 or 4 for sure.
Right. Perfect. Okay. I don't want to give people wrong info. And then our last question in our comments section, Dustin, and we really appreciate your time on this. Does the appraisal value matter when it comes to the home? Does the sales price matter when it comes to the home? Or does each insurance company have their own actuaries putting together their own information?
Okay. So like I said, you have different types of homeowners policies. Your general homeowners policy is going to go by the replacement value of your home. The replacement value of your home is always going to be higher than the market value. Okay. So for instance, I had someone the other day, they were purchasing a home for like $250,000, right? But the replacement value on their home is like $360,000. So first of all, I told them, like, you're getting a really good deal on your house, but But the replacement cost value is much different because you've got cost of labor, cost of materials have all gone up, right? There are policies that you can write based on just a stated value. Like, hey, I only want $100,000 worth of coverage on my home. Okay, we got a policy for you if that's all you want. You've got market value. So we'll look up what the market value is and we can insure it for market value if that's all you want. But if you want your home repaired to be completely indemnified, to get back what you've got into it, basically, you're going to go with that replacement cost value.
Wow. And guys, from a real estate perspective standpoint, like there's some places we can get you houses for $125 a foot. There's places where we can get you houses for $150 a foot. There's places where you can get a house for $1,000 a foot here in Oklahoma City in the state of Oklahoma. There's absolutely those options on the table. From a real estate standpoint, what I see Dustin talking about is just because you get a good deal on the buy, I personally feel looking at new construction across the state, whether it's our Enid customers, our Tulsa customers, our Oklahoma City customers, our Ada customers, looking across the state, I'm looking at a build cost on the low side of like 185 to 225 on the median side just to build a new home. Yeah. So like Dustin was saying, you're getting a good deal at a house that's only $125 a foot. He didn't use a foot because I'm using that as my real estate measurement for value, but $125 a foot to $150 a foot is the going rate for existing homes right now. New construction going rate is $175 a foot to $225 a foot for your median style homes. And that's the actual cost to replace. Because the cost to replace, like Dustin talked about, labor, permits, land cost, even though you own the land, if that slab's still there, you may have to scrape it. Yep. And scraping a slab is just as expensive as buying a slab.
Got to clean up all that debris. That's typically $10,000 to $30,000. Yeah.
Awesome. Rachel, reach out to Dustin. Cool Gamers, reach out to Dustin. There's 4 million people that live here, guys. Not all 4 million people are happy about living here, but no one's happy about everything that they always do. But there's 4 million people living here, making it happen. This is an informational video. Don't let me scare you about moving to Oklahoma. Cool Gamers, I don't want to do that at all. Their insurance is there to protect you, just like the Titanic. It protected the company. They had insurance, just like anything that happens, it has insurance. So, good question, Cool Gamer. Dustin, do you have time for one more question?
Yeah.
Is new home insurance less expensive than existing home insurance, or is that a qualifier?
No, it's not. Some companies have a discount for new home purchases. So if you've purchased your home within the last year, you can get that discount, but nope, it's all the same, either new or old. Now, sometimes when you get into rating an older home, there will be, when you get down like the historic part of Oklahoma City and you got some of these beautiful homes with some really elaborate things that it's absolutely no way you could replace that today, right? You kind of have to make a choice in that is like, okay, do I want to try to build this back to the way it is, or I want to build it with today's material and, or you could call it like a functional replacement, like just want a house that's going to be functional or comparable to, within today's standards of building. So yes, sometimes you get into those historic homes, that rate can go up a little bit, but rate can go up on a new home too if you get really elaborate. So,
and Dustin, one of the things as a real estate agent that I want to point out about those historic homes and those historic neighborhoods is if you're in one of the actual designated historic neighborhoods where you're having to replace with what was there, it might be new construction material, but it has to be the same like kind and look the same because you've got to meet those historic district standards. You got to go through a committee and everything else just to replace your windows. Definitely talk up front about that with Dustin so that he gives you the right coverage. Because if you're just getting, double pane vinyl replacement window coverage, but you've got to put in old wood windows that actually are wood windows and they function as wood windows to meet the committee standard, you've got to get that coverage, or you might be paying double or triple for those windows.
Yeah, it's funny. The old style wooden windows are much more expensive to replace than the new vinyl or aluminum even. Yeah.
They lost the craftsmen. The craftsmen who used to make those aren't existent anymore. They lost the craftsmen. Mm-hmm. Dustin, I don't want to keep you too much longer. I know you got other appointments today. What's the best book you've been reading lately?
Oh man. Well, if I want to say the best book, I read a psalm every morning. And that is awesome. But I've also been reading a book. It's called Leadership Pipeline. I can't remember who it's by, but it talks about building an organization. So I do ministry work in my church as well as the agency here. So I'm looking at. My dad started this agency 35 years ago. He's done everything the old school way. He's done it all himself. I've got bigger plans for this agency. So eventually I'd like to have about a dozen people in here working for me, and so I'm looking at, how can I build this, and make it really a fine-tuned machine where everybody knows their position, everyone knows their job, and we're efficient at what we do. We give the best customer care that's possible. But also on the ministry side of things, it goes together as well, because I got ministry teams and stuff that, if you've ever done any work in a church or something, you can see where 5% of the people wind up doing 95% of the work, and just learning how to manage things on either business or ministry side just to be the most efficient. So that's been a great book. And I've got a few. I've always got a stack next to my bed. So I like theology books. I'm kind of a nerd in that. So
that's awesome. Trips on a day trip. Day trips on. Where would you go in Oklahoma if you just wanted to do a little day trip?
Oh, well, I'm a lake dweller, so
just a day trip. You're not spending all weekend. Which one would you hit up?
I'd probably hit up a Big Bass Lake. I like Okemah, Bell Cow. I just watched a YouTube video about a lake. It's called Todd Lake, and yeah, the guys I was watching there, they were pulling out 6 and 8 pounders like nothing. So yeah, I'm a bass fisherman. If I'm going to take my family somewhere, like I said, I'm a lake dweller. We'd probably go to Eufaula.
Awesome. Any restaurant in Eufaula you'd hit up while you were there, or do you just catch it and cook it there?
Charlie's is pretty good there in Eufaula Cove. And then I'm trying to remember. I'm normally kind of a bologna and cheese kind of guy when I travel. I've got 4 kids. So in fact, they're here at the office with me today, and we stopped at Brahms before we came over because my middle daughter, she knows how to talk me into things. She wanted ice cream. So, man, it was just ridiculous. Like, we hardly got them anything because they don't eat much, and just the price, So, man, I've just found that it's cheaper, and if you know what you're doing, if you know how to cook or prepare a sandwich, it can be a lot better than what you can buy somewhere else. But yeah. So I will confess this. I'm the guy, I'll spend all day out on the lake fishing, catch and release, and then I'll go somewhere and buy a plate of fish, Yeah. I'll keep them and give them to my brother and let him clean them. And, I'll let him fry them up and come over and eat them. So.
That is awesome. Mm-hmm. Dustin, great information for our audience. Our audience appreciates it so much. Cool Games, definitely reach out to Dustin. I don't want to steal too much more of his time. I want to let you know, in my personal opinion, I don't think that insurance costs outweighs house costs unless you have flood insurance involved. But reach out to Dustin and go over that with him in detail. I don't want to steal too much more of his time. So Eufaula Lake, Todd Lake, Charlie's over at Eufaula, and then Leadership Pipeline. Is that right? Did I say it all right? Mm-hmm. Awesome. Dustin,
also throw out there, we've got a Facebook
Psalms. Sorry.
Yep. We've got a Facebook page. It's Dooley Insurance Agency. Yep. So, you can find me on there. My face is right there when you look it up. So, and you can see the logo up there. So
it is. I literally feel like I stole this picture for our thumbnail. It is spot on. Mine's about 7 to 8 years old, so I got to up. No. I used an updated picture. Never mind. I used the updated picture. Guys, for all your real estate needs, reach out to us. My team and I are absolutely here to help you, whether you're selling, investing, or buying. And reach out to Dustin for all your insurance needs. Even if you just want a second opinion, reach out to him, find out where you guys are at. Thank you so much for joining us on today's Memorial Day live video about the 4 most important things you want to know about when it comes to insurance in the state of Oklahoma. Dustin, thank you so much. You want to tell the audience any last things before we go?
Nope, I'm good. Josh, I appreciate it. I hope everyone has a safe and blessed Memorial Day. And don't get sunburned. Don't get hot.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Rachel, reach out to Dustin too. Thank you guys so much for commenting and interacting during this live video. And we'll see you guys on the next one. This video that's popping up either on the left or right or the top or the bottom, those are good videos that the algorithm thinks that you might want to check out too. Have a great one, guys.